long night before.
Yeah, I was watching. Yeah.
All right. We got a low chair here. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's hearing. We'll begin with two bills, one that will keep seniors and the disabled in their homes, and another that will help us provide emergency 911 services. Intro 1676 raises the maximum qualifying income for real estate tax exemptions for senior citizen and disabled homeowners to $58,399 a year per household. This will ease the burden on an additional 26,000 homeowners and will also increase the benefit for more than 6,000 current recipients. Intro 1677 continues a wireless communications service surcharge to fund emergency 911 services. It's now my pleasure to introduce the sponsor of Intro 1676, Councilmember Chaim Deutsch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Intro 1676 is an important step forward for the city, and I want to thank our mayor for co-sponsoring this bill and for being an advocate for our seniors. With today's bill signing, we are taking significant measures towards easing some of the financial burdens that plague many seniors and disabled homeowners. Until now, the senior citizens and disabled homeowner exemption only offered a tax benefit to individuals who earned less than $37,400. We have raised that income limit by $20,000, and now tens of thousands of New Yorkers with an income of $58,400 or less will be able to qualify for the property tax break of up to 50% of their tax bill. They will no longer need to make a choice between paying their tax bill or putting food on their table. This is a huge victory for New Yorkers, and I want to thank my colleagues, State Senator Deanne Savino and Assemblymember Brian Kavanaugh for their leadership on this effort on the state level. I also want to thank Eric Bernstein, counsel to the Finance Division, for his quick and thorough work in getting Intro 1676 drafted and through the council. And this is important to me and my district, and not only for the residents across the city, the seniors across the city, because my district comprises of more than 30% of seniors, and this is really important, and this is really a step forward for all our senior citizens, for many tens of thousands of seniors. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember. Congratulations. And I'd also like to thank a number of people who helped make sure this legislation came into reality. Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, Finance Commissioner Jacques Giha, and Assistant Finance Commissioner Pierre Dejean. Councilmember Jalissa Ferreras Copeland, Chair of the Committee on Finance and the sponsor of Intro 1677. Since we do not have folks here for public testimony, we will now proceed to sign these two bills. Come on over. You'll take it off. You'll take it off. Would you seriously? I'll do 12. Okay. It's a full service operation. Well, excellent. Let me. One for the assistant. Thank you. Well done. And I'll pass one along to the commissioner as well. The assembly line. Good, covering all the bases. All right. And This one, how many we does? Huh? Half a dozen it is. I feel like I run a deli here.
So we've got a gentleman right behind you.
Well, all right. Well deserved. All right. These bills are now law. Well done. Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well done. Thank you so much. Thank you. Here we go. Thank you very much. All right. Now, you're very welcome. All right. Now we're going to consider the first of two packages of bills to protect tenants from harassment. Intro 347B gives the Housing Court the ability to award compensatory damages and attorney's fees to tenants who prevail in harassment cases. Intro 1530A shifts part of the burden of proof in Housing Court harassment cases to the landlord. Intro 1548A expands the definition of harassment to include repeated contact at unusual hours. Intro 1549A allows tenants to take their landlords to court for repeatedly interrupting essential services such as heat or hot water, and allows a tenant to include frivolous lawsuits targeting other tenants in the same building as proof of harassment. Intro 1556A increases the minimum civil penalties for tenant harassment. I want to thank the chair of the Committee on Housing and Buildings and the sponsor of Intro 1556A, Councilmember Jamani Williams. And I want to thank the sponsor of Intro 347B, Councilmember Helen Rosenthal. I want to thank the sponsor of Intro 1548A, Councilmember Mark Levine. In addition, my thanks to Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, who is also the sponsor of Intro 1530A, HPD Commissioner Maria Torres-Springer. Thanks to the sponsor of Intro 1549A, Councilmember Carlos Menchaca. We have no public testimony at this time, and we will be signing that set of bills at a later date. And now another package of bills that increases tenant protections and deters quote unquote construction as harassment. And I want to offer my special thanks at this moment to an important organization that fought for these bills, the Stand for Tenant Safety Coalition. So our thanks to the Stand for Tenant Safety Coalition for their good efforts that led to this legislation. First of all, Intro 918A requires the Department of Buildings to audit construction applications for buildings that are at least 25% occupied and to perform final inspections on them. Intro 924A requires that the Department of Buildings, that DOB vacate orders include the date by which owners must certify corrected violations. Intro 926A creates a task force appointed by agencies, the Council, and the Mayor's Office to evaluate policies involving the construction and renovation of occupied buildings, publish a report, and recommend ways to improve agency coordination. Intro 930A expands the definition of quote-unquote distressed property to include residential properties subject to tax liens resulting from ECB judgments with a lien-to-value ratio equal to or greater than 25%. Intro 931B allows the city to impose tax liens on multiple dwellings in a building when the total value of ECB judgments exceeds $60,000 for larger buildings or $30,000 for smaller buildings. Intro 936A requires tenant protection plans for construction in occupied residential buildings to include access to essential services. This bill also requires Department of Buildings to make tenant protection plans publicly available and to conduct compliance inspections. Intro 938A requires Department of Buildings to maintain a watch list of contractors who have worked without permits and increase oversight of their work sites. Intro 939A increases penalties for unpermitted construction work on occupied residential buildings. Intro 940A increases penalties for violations of stop work orders. Intro 944A increases penalties and oversight for buildings where unpermitted construction work has been performed. Intro 960A creates a safe construction Bill of Rights and requires that it is posted for tenants during permitted construction. Intro 1133A requires Department of Buildings to withhold certain permits for properties or landlords owing the city $25,000 or more in unpaid ECB charges unless the permit is needed to correct a dangerous condition. Intro 1523A establishes an Office of the Tenant Advocate within the Department of Buildings that will track construction complaints from tenants and respond to them. It's my pleasure to thank the Chair of the Housing and Buildings Committee, Councilmember Jamani Williams. Also would like to thank the sponsor of Intro 924A, Councilmember Rafael Espinal, the sponsor of Intros 930A and 931B, Councilmember Ben Kalos, the sponsor of Intro 936A, Councilmember Mark Levine, the sponsor of Intros 938A, 939A, and 940A, Councilmember Antonio Reynoso, the sponsor of Intros 944A and 1523A, Councilmember Helen Rosenthal. In addition, my thanks to Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito, Buildings Commissioner Rick Chandler, HPD Commissioner Maria Torres Springer, Department of Finance Commissioner Jacques Giha, Health Commissioner Dr. Mary Bassett, DEP Commissioner Vincent Sapienza. I want to thank all of them for their hard work on these many pieces of legislation, and further want to thank the sponsor of Intro 918A, Councilmember Margaret Chin, the sponsor of Intro 926A, Councilmember Dan Garodnick, the sponsor of Intro 960A, Councilmember Rosie Mendez, and the sponsor of Intro 1133A, Councilmember James Vaca. With that, we have public testimony from two individuals. Jane Lee of the Community Development Project at Urban Justice Center, and Donna Chu of Mobilization for Justice. We welcome your testimony here at the microphone.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Jane Lee. I am a staff attorney in the housing unit of the Community Development Project at the Urban Justice Center. I'm here on behalf of the Stand for Tenant Safety Coalition, a coalition of over 30 organizations and legal service groups across the city that have been fighting for an end to construction as harassment. And these bills will go very far in helping our tenants who are facing pervasive pressures from predatory equity landlords around the city. Our coalition formed over 3 years ago because tenants across the city were talking to organizers and lawyers about how landlords were utilizing the system in order to displace them from mostly rent-stabilized apartments, and how the Department of Buildings wasn't adequately responding to the issues that were happening. So the Urban Justice Center and these community-based organizations conducted surveys in 2015 and found that the average response for our tenants to get a DOB inspection was over 40 days. It took over 58 days to investigate work without a permit, and that the fines that were levied against these landlords were very low. Sometimes in just the average fine was about $2,500. So working with council members across the city, tenants devised some things that they would like to see as legislative solutions. Those fall under the broad camps of stronger Department of Buildings enforcement to protect the tenants, stiffer monetary penalties to deter bad behavior on the part of landlords, increased oversight of bad actors, including contractors and landlords, and increased protections for tenants so that they are more aware of the rights that they have. So we are obviously very much in support of this package, and tenants from across the city, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, have showed up to rallies, to hearings, to town halls, both in Brooklyn and Manhattan, to advocate for this legislation, and we're really happy that this legislation will be passed. We look forward to the Department of Buildings implementing regulations that will ensure that the intended effect of this legislation will be felt on the ground. So thank you so much for everyone's hard work. And again, we're very excited about this legislation.
Thank you very much. It's okay. Handheld microphone. It's okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Donna Chu, and I'm a supervising attorney at Mobilization for Justice. And we are also part of the Stanford Tenant Safety Coalition that my colleague Jane Lee mentioned. And I'm here today to thank and be very grateful for the bills that really increase the penalties for tenant harassment. And of course, as all of us New Yorkers know, it's even more critical to keep people in their homes today. And what is happening in the outer boroughs is that when people get evicted from their rent-stabilized homes, they are going into the outer boroughs, into 1- and 2-family homes and renting rooms. And in those homes, it's more important that the penalties for tenant harassment be increased, and in buildings for the rebuttable presumption for tenant harassment to apply, because what we found on the ground is that a lot of owners, instead of going through the court process, they are engaging in acts of harassment to evict folks. And a lot of the times these people are New York's most vulnerable. They're the elderly, they're the disabled, they're the mentally incapacitated. We have a lot of folks who are non-English speakers and immigrants, new immigrants, and so those people need a lot of protection. And so today, on behalf of the Stanford Tenant Safety Coalition, we want to thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everybody, and the legislators for passing the bills. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations. Thank you for your hard work on this issue. All right, so appreciate the comments, and we also, in the case of this package of legislation, we'll be signing these bills at a later date. Okay, we've got a final package of bills I'd like to discuss, and very importantly, these bills will help reduce the number of New Yorkers who smoke or use tobacco. Intro 1131B prohibits pharmacies and stores with a pharmacy from selling tobacco products. Intro 1471A nearly doubles the license fee required to sell tobacco. Intro 1532A requires a license to sell electronic cigarettes. Now, all current retailers may apply. Once licenses have been issued, a cap of 50% of the number of licenses in each community district will be established, and no new licenses will be issued until the number of licenses falls below the cap. Intro 1544B increases the minimum price of cigarette and little cigar packs. It sets price minimums for other tobacco products and non-tobacco shisha. And it establishes minimum package sizes for certain products. Intro 1544B also taxes tobacco products, including cigars, and provides that the revenue from this tax is dedicated to public housing. Intro 1547A caps the number of tobacco licenses as 50% of the current quantity in each community district. No new licenses will be issued until the number falls below 50% of the current level in each community district. This bill also expands the license requirements from cigarettes alone to all tobacco products. Intro 1585A requires co-op, condo, and rental apartment buildings to create a smoking policy and share it annually with their tenants. Intro 484A prohibits smoking and the use of electronic cigarettes in common areas of all multifamily buildings. This bill strengthens the current law to cover buildings with 3 or more units, down from 10 or more units. I'd like to thank the chair of the Health Committee and the sponsor of Intro 1471A and 1544B, Councilmember Corey Johnson. Also want to thank, of course, Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, our Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services, Dr. Emilia Palacio, our Health Commissioner, Dr. Mary Bassett, DCA Commissioner Lorelei Salas, Finance Commissioner Jacques Jiha, HPD Commissioner Maria Torres Springer, NYCHA Chair Shola Olatoye, our Sheriff Joseph Facito, and in addition to the members of my administration who worked so hard on this package of bills, I want to thank the sponsor of Intro 484A, Councilmember James Vaca, the sponsor of Intros 1131B and 1547A, Councilmember Brad Lander, sponsor of Intro 1532A, Councilmember Fernando Cabrera, and the sponsor of Intro 1585A, Councilmember Richie Torres. And we now have one individual signed up to testify, Philip Konigsberg of the Queens Tobacco Control Coalition. We welcome your testimony at the microphone.
Mayor de Blasio.
Welcome.
My name is Phil Konigsberg. I'm with the Queens Tobacco Control Coalition. It's a funded, CDC-funded fellowship with the National Leadership Academy for the Public's Health. I was fortunate to attend your public hearing back at the American Heart Association's headquarters, and I'm really glad that you've taken the support of the bills that you're having the public hearing for. I want to let you know I'm in favor of all 7 bills. You read them, so I'll save time and not read the bills. These were overwhelmingly or unanimously passed by the City Council, so I hope you will proceed and sign them. As someone who believes we are still on the frontier of protecting the health and safety of non-smokers living in apartments, where up to 65% of the air is shared, Intro 484 and 1585 are particularly close to my heart. Intro 484 removes the loophole that kept multiple dwellings with less than 10 apartments absurdly exempt from the New York City Smoke-Free Air Act passed over a decade ago. Intro 1585 will mandate prospective renters and purchasers who are making a long-term major commitment to be aware if they're going to live in a building where secondhand smoke would be present. The Council's Committee on Health in April also held public hearings on 3 additional tobacco control and smoke-free bills. Councilman Richards' Intro 977, a bill to mandate city-subsidized multiple housing, newly constructed buildings to be smoke-free.
Go ahead.
Okay. Councilman Cabrera's Intro 1140, a bill to protect the use of tobacco products in a vehicle when a child is present, and Councilman Gentili's Intro 139, a bill that would bring hookah bars under the control of the New York City Smoke-Free Air Act. I was disappointed that you and your administration did not support these intros. A concern over how Intro 977 and 1140 would be enforced, I believe, is unwarranted. Similar laws exist nationally and internationally and have been well received and significantly reduced the harm from secondhand smoke involuntarily imposed on non-smoking children, adults, and pets. I hope you will consider down the line these other 3 bills. I think they're very important for everyone, and thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it. So this package of legislation we will also be signing at a later date. I'd now like to just offer a few words in Spanish summarizing the bills that we have considered today. Hoy estoy firmando y tuvimos audiencias para un total de 27 leyes. Con estas leyes, más ancianos y discapacitados pueden calificar para pagar menos impuestos por propiedades. Los inquilinos tienen más capacidad para demandar a caseros y recibir más compensación. Damos más derechos y protecciones a los inquilinos de edificios en construcción. Imponemos sanciones más severas a los caseros que violen códigos de construcción, y comprar tabaco será más difícil y más caro mejorando así la salud de todos los neoyorquinos. With that, I thank everyone for being here. I wish you a beautiful summer day, and this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.